guys, this is test 63 game 2. This is the skydiving game. It's an ordering game. We know this because the divers dive one at a time, meaning they must all be diving at different times, so there has to be an order in which they dive. Now I've laid out a bunch of things here, but I'm going to explain all of them. We've got the 6 people, LOP, TWZ. We've got that T is before W, which means that W cannot be first, and T cannot be last. Next, they tell us that L is either first or last, so I put L/ on 1 and /L on 6. They tell us neither W nor Z goes last, so I put down that W cannot be last and Z cannot be last. Then finally, they tell us that P is either after O or L, but not both. This means that P must be in between them, so we have either L or O before P, and then either O or L after P. So because P is in the middle of O and L, P cannot be first, and P also cannot be last. Now, if none of T, P, W, or Z can be on 6, that means that only O or L could ever be on 6 because there are 6 people. So I'm going to put down O/L on space number 6 because this space will have to be occupied by either O or L. And because either O or L has to be 6, it means that W is necessarily coming before the O/L on 6, as is, everybody else. So I'm going to actually draw a new, more comprehensive diagram simply by linking together the W-TW sequence occurring before O/L, meaning that we're going to have either O or L on 6, and then before that we're going to have T before W, as well as L/O before P before O/L. Now I know this might seem like a rather obvious connection, but I try to diagram things as comprehensively as possible, linking the variables together. So this is a more concise way to represent everything that we know about the sequences, and then also the fact that O or L is on 6 on the spaces themselves. So this right here is our initial setup for the game. Now question number 6 is a typical orientation question. You just want to take one rule at a time and apply that rule to all 5 choices looking for violations. So for example, we know that L has to always be on either 1 or 6, so we see that choice E, which has L on 4, is violating this and can be eliminated as a result. We also know that T is before W, so scanning through the choices that remain looking for violations there, we find that choice C violates this, having W before T, so C can be eliminated as a result. We also know that neither W nor Z could ever be on 6. Scanning through the choices for that, we find that A violates this, having W on 6. So we're left now with B and D. And the one rule we have not used is that P is between O and L on either side of it, not necessarily adjacent though, of course. And we find that choice D violates this, having P before both O and L, so D is eliminated, leaving B as our answer for number 6. Next, number 7, general must be true question. All we can do right here is run through the choices. So must we have at least 2 people after L? No, of course, it's possible to have L on 6. We don't need to have anybody after L, so for that reason, A can be eliminated. Next, B, at least 2 people after O. No particular reason to think that couldn't happen. I mean, that has to happen. I mean, we could have O coming on 6, in which case nobody would be after it. We also saw back from question 6, choice B, that it was possible to have a valid scenario with O on 6 and no one after it, so B can be eliminated there. Next, looking at C, at least 2 people after P. We have no particular reason to believe that P could not be, for example, on 5. So for this reason, we could eliminate C. Next, looking at D, at least 2 people after T. Due to the connection that I made at the very outset here, we see that it's possible to have that we always have to have at least W and then one of O/L at a minimum occurring after T. So for that reason, T could never be on 5. The earliest that T could ever be, perhaps, is 4. So for that reason, D is a must. At least 2 things must go after T, and D is our answer for number 7. I will look at E though. At least 2 people after W. We saw, again, back from question 6, choice B, that we could have W on 5 with only 1 thing after it. So for that reason, E can be eliminated as well. Next, number 8, if L were last, 4 things could be true, 1 thing could not be true. So I'm going to put L on 6 right there, which of course means that L is not going on 1, and we're going to have O before P before L in particular. So I'll just mark that down on this as well. Of course, you should write this separately. Don't mess up your main diagram. So this is the state of affairs now. And of course, Z is a floater. So 4 things could be true. Find the 4 things that could be true, eliminate them, and whatever remains is your answer. Or if you like, if something jumps out at you, then obviously pick it. So could T be 4th? Yeah, we could have T on 4, W on 5, L on 6. That works. A is gone. B, W 4th. Yeah, we could have W on 4 and then have T still coming earlier than it. That would work perfectly fine. So B is eliminated. There's plenty of room for that. Looking at C, O on 5. Of course, O on 5 could not work because then we'd have P on 6 and we'd have L on 6 and we would not be able to fit P in between them. So for that reason, C is impossible and is our answer to number 8. I will look at the rest though. D with P on 5. We could easily fit O before it if we had P on 5. That works perfectly fine. So for that reason, D is eliminated. Then looking at E, Z on 5. Z is a floater. It could be anywhere. We could easily fit everything else before it without a problem. So Z is eliminated as well, leaving C if you didn't get it before. Next, number 9. If Z was immediately after W. So Z is a variable about which there are no rules at all. I'm going to stick Z in right here and box those 2 guys. So before O/L, we have WZ as a box. Before that, we have T. And then we have, separately, before O/L, we have P, and then L/O as well. So lots of ambiguity here, but we did lock down the variable about which we previously knew nothing. So this question is a must-be-false question, which we can translate to could be true except. So find the 4 things that could be true, eliminate them, and whatever remains is your answer, or if you scan through the choices and something jumps out at you, then of course you can pick it. Now, nothing is obviously jumping out here, at least to me, so I'm going to work by process of elimination here, finding the 4 things that could be true. Now, we've never had WZ occurring consecutively in that order. We haven't really drawn any main diagrams thus far. But we could look back at question 6B, the correct answer there, and just kind of switch things around. So for example, instead of having ZW on 4, 5, we could have WZ going in those spaces, and nothing would be screwed up. Everything would still work fine. So I'm going to put WZ on 4, 5, put O on 6, just switching around 6B a little bit, and then putting L on 1, T on 2, and P on 3. This will actually help us eliminate a few things, because it's a valid scenario. So could we have L first? Yes, of course we can. So for that reason, A is eliminated since we're looking for what cannot be true. Could we have T on 3? We don't see that here, but what if we just switched around T and P? We could have P on 2 and T on 3. Everything still works perfectly fine because it's in compliance with the sequence from the original rules. So T on 3 works, therefore we can eliminate B. Then looking at C, we don't have Z third here, nor do we have, P fourth, nor do we have Z fourth, but we can draw a new diagram and make things work from there to eliminate some stuff. So I'm going to now put the WZ sequence a little bit earlier. I'll put W on 2 and Z on 3. Of course, T goes before W, so T will be on 1. And then we'll have to have L on 6, since L is always on 1 or on 6. Then we have O and P remaining with, of course, O before P, since P's always got to be between those guys. So does this scenario work? Yeah, no problems at all. So we have Z third. We can now eliminate choice C. We don't have P on 4. And then looking at E, of course, Z fourth didn't happen. We'll have to draw even one more additional diagram. I know it's a lot of work here, but there's no obvious shortcuts for this question. So Z on 4, I'm going to put W immediately before it as the question stem requires. Then I'll have T before W. I'll have, let's say, I could put L/O on 1, O/L on 6, and then P on 5. Does this check out? Yeah, we're complying with everything involved in the sequence here. Everything works. So Z on 4 can be eliminated. E's gone, leaving D by process of elimination. Now, why doesn't P on 4 work? We haven't ever seen it happen, but that isn't necessarily proof. We just got here by process of elimination. So I'll show you why. If we were to put P on 4, here's what happens. P on 4, we have to have, of course, O and L coming after it, and then WZ now is forced to go before it. We can't put WZ on 5 and 6 because then we're not going to be able to have O/L on 6 as is required. So I'm going to put WZ on 2 and 3 so I can have T before them on 1. But the problem that results is now we have either O on 5 and L on 6, or we have L on 5, and O on 6. So we can't have P in between O and L. That's the problem that results. So for that reason, P on 4 is impossible, since that's what led us here, and D is our answer to number 9. Finally, number 10, if T was immediately after L, meaning we had LT boxed in that particular order. We obviously wouldn't be able to have L on 6. We'd have to have L on 1 so that T could come after it, and that would happen, of course, on 2. So then if L's on 1, O has to be on 6, and then we have the rest of the sequenced variables, basically W and P as well as Z, about which there are no rules at all. We have to place the rest of these things. So P, W, and Z are the variables that remain, and they can pretty much go anywhere now, because anywhere we place P, it'll be between L and O. Anywhere we place W, it'll be after T. So P, W, and Z are all basically floating around on 3, 4, and 5, no restrictions at all. And of course, Z never has any restrictions about it. So looking at B, C, D, E, they're all talking about P, W, and Z happening on 3 or 4. We obviously know that P, W, Z could be anywhere within 3, 4, and 5. So B, C, D, and E can automatically be eliminated, leaving A as our answer. And of course, why can't O be third? Because O has to be on 6, because L was on 1, because that was the only way we could have L coming immediately before T. So A, O on 6, O on 3 is our answer to number 10 because it's impossible.